Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Tonight we have a review, and it's actually going to be a review of what I would consider one of the greatest designer fragrances of the 21st century. This is Gucci Guilty Absolute. Now, before we do the review though, I do have a quick unboxing, and this unboxing comes from a brand that actually works, I think, 100% in naturals. I'm not 100% sure yet because I've never smelled the brand, but I think the owner is named Divvyam, so thank you, Divvyam. He basically reached out to me on Instagram and said, hey man, I own this small house named Kashti. I don't know if anyone's heard of it, and he sent me this little care package. So let's open it up. I guess I did no preparation work on opening this, so you might have to sit through a little bit of me cutting, but that's okay. Good things come to those who wait. So let's see what we have. I am excited to check this out. I always like exploring new brands. And so let us see what we have, shall we? Is anyone familiar, first of all, with this brand Kashti? I want to say I've heard of them before. And I told them my usual, hey, you can send me whatever you want, but first of all, I want you to understand a couple things. Number one is I work on my own time frame. So you could send me something and maybe I don't talk about it for a year. You know, that's just the way it goes. And number two is that I say whatever I want about it. Oh man, this is like really, really wrapped. So, that means I also do negative reviews, so could be good, could be bad. You know, you never know what I'm going to say about it, so just keep that in mind. And he still sent me the stuff, so I take it that means he is okay with that. Oh, wow. This packaging, man. At least I'm getting my workout in. Holy moly. I need a better knife for this. Almost there. I guess I should have done this beforehand. But now that we're already in on it, we just got to continue on. Okay. So let's do this. Let me show you guys what he sent me. So, he sent me this. So, here's the brand again. I think it's called Kashti is how you pronounce that. K-A-S-H-T. I think that's like a T-I. And here it is. Here's some of the stuff he sent. Here's one of the little care packages. And so we have some Nagaland agarwood, which is really cool. I don't think I actually have anything like this in my collection, so that's interesting. I need to get one of those little heaters, one of those low temperature heaters. I'll have to get with Russian Adam and see which brand he recommends. Here's some actual Mysore sandalwood, it looks like. Kind of cool. And then the stuff I'm most interested in are these little attars. So this one is... I've been getting into attars lately because of the good Sultan Pasha, the great Sultan Pasha, the maestro of attars, to be honest with you. This one's called Amritha Bindhu. I need to look these up. Let's see if they're in Parfumo. But you can see the juice. Black. Let's see. Kashti. Well, they have the brand, but Amritha Bindhu. Ah, here we go. It is in here. Came out last year, 2023. Ambergris, musk, rose, and tobacco. I mean, hell, that sounds like right up my alley as of late. So that is cool. And then there is this little bad boy, which is Ubaid, I believe it's called. Ubaid. I'd love to know if anyone knows this brand. I want to know what the feedback is about it. You know, attars are something that are like a serious rabbit hole. You know, it's funny because while I was wearing those Sultan Pasha attars, it got to a point almost where I didn't want to stop. I wanted to keep wearing them. I didn't want to go back to spraying fragrance, which is crazy because if you know me, you know I adore actually my routine. I'm a very routine person. So not spraying the fragrance and actually like rubbing it on is something that took a while to get used to. But after I got used to it, man, I loved it. So this is called Ubaid. Let's see what Ubaid is. Maybe it's not in here. This might be one of the ones that's not in here. Yeah, this one's not in Parfumo yet. Maybe that's a newer one. And then we have Anokha. I think it's pronounced Anokha. I could be wrong. Let's see if this is in Parfumo. Anokha. Anokha. Nope, I don't think it is. Looks like this is also not in Parfumo. I'm going to have to look these up separately. So those are the Attars. And then let's see what's in the second box. In the second box, we have... these are cool. I think these are sprays. That's kind of cool. Look at that. It's like a leather pouch. So this is called Rose Oud. This is... Ooh, interesting. Let's see if this one's in Parfumo. Ocean of Scents. I don't know. Is that just what he called it? Is that like a brand? Oh, it must be like a brand slogan because it's on all of these little leather pouches. Let's see what the Rose Oud. Rose Oud. Yes, it is. Also 2023. I wonder if this is a newer brand. Ambergris, bay leaf, castoreum, civet, frankincense, oak moss, orange, oud, rose, saffron, and vetiver. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. So let me save this. Interestingly enough, I already had that on the wish list. So I wonder if someone reached out to me and asked once if I've ever tried Kashti, and I looked them up and put them on the wish list. So this one is called Devatv. I don't know. Some of these names are crazy. Let's see, Devatv. Yes, this is also 2023. This is supposed to be just a sandalwood note, just a sandalwood fragrance. Interesting. So one note, sandalwood, which is actually a really tough note to isolate in a perfume because it can be so soft, especially if you're working with the real material. So hard to isolate a proper sandalwood note. Maybe that's why he did it just sandalwood. This is called Kosalam. Some of these names, maybe they're just not translating to English. Let's see. Kosalam. Also 2023. This is making me think this is a newer brand. Assam Oud, Bergamot, Castoreum, okay. Civet, Frangipani, frankincense, geranium, jasmine, lemon, myrrh, orange, patchouli, resins, rose, and tuberose. This sounds like that's going to be right up my alley, but we shall see. You can never judge a book by its cover. And then we have Chandrahas. And you can see all the juices are pretty dark looking. Chandrahas is, what is it? What is Chandrahas? It is not listed on here. So this is one of the ones that is not listed. And then, finally, the final one is, oh God, they saved the best name for last. How about that? Try to pronounce that. Jyotishmathi. Let's see. Jyotishmathi. No release date on this one, but it's pineapple, tuberose, frankincense, vetiver, castoreum, cedarwood, Indian spices, and oud. So, okay, very interesting. And I have no clue about the pricing on this brand at all. I don't know anything about these. I'll have to look into them before I end up doing any videos, but thank you, Divvyam, for your kindness in sending these to me. And so I will hopefully talk about these one of these days on the channel, but we shall see. As you guys know, I have a lot to talk about on the channel. So I'm just going to put these away for a little bit right here, and we will get to them. We will get to them when we get to them. Okay, so for those of you who are here just for the Gucci Guilty Absolute review, sorry for the unboxing at the beginning, but I love just kind of doing that just so I can talk about some scents and you guys know what I have. And if anyone wants me to hone in on a specific one because they're interested in it, just let me know. Okay, Gucci Guilty Absolute came out in 2017, and it was released by, or perfumed by, Alberto Morillas, which I think this is one of the greatest designer fragrances of the 21st century, in my opinion. And that is, it's interesting because what's the irony of it all is designer perfumes, once we got into the 2000s, they became more and more boring, more and more drab. It's almost like they just completely stopped trying and they're just recycling the same old over and over again. And one of the main culprits of recycling the same old, that fresh designer feel, you know, he had a huge hit in the 1990s with Acqua di Gio. And then, of course, he's been, I mean, a ton of designer fragrances. He's the king of designer perfumes. Versace Dylan Blue, Dolce & Gabbana Light Blue, Pour Homme Intense, Bulgari Man. He did YSL M7, which I actually like, Givenchy's Pie, Mugler Cologne. I mean, designer fragrance after designer fragrance, if you will. But he's also done some niche stuff. He's done work for Penhaligon's. He's done work for Amouage. So he's not just a designer fragrance. You know, he did Jeremy Fragrance's line, Salvatore Ferragamo, Uomo. I mean, big designer fragrance hits, right? And so it's the irony is that the man who is almost responsible for part of the reason why I hate mass perfumery on the designer side also made one of what I think is one of the greatest designer fragrances of the 21st century. So you figure that irony out. Some folks say that Gucci Guilty Absolute basically smells like a hospital. That's what you hear pretty regularly, okay? That it smells like a hospital after it's been cleaned. And there's definitely a little bit about the hospital clean aspect about it. The note listing is very interesting because there's 3 real notes in here and 2 captive molecules by Firmenich, okay? One is Nootka Cypress, the other is Patchouli, and the third is vetiver, okay? And I would almost say there's a leather note in here because one of the captives, which I think it's a I don't know, I'm not a perfumer, so I can't speak the lingo. I'm not gonna, I can't say that this is necessarily a captive molecule, but it is a note that is created by Firmenich from my understanding, and it's called wood leather. And go figure, it smells like wood and leather, but specifically leather. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well. And then the other one is called Golden Wood, which to my understanding, Golden Wood is kind of a derivative of this Nootka Cypress, okay? So it's funny because some people say that this smells so unique. It smells like a hospital after it's been cleaned. It has that sort of mentholated, cleaner-like feel. But I always ask my daughter, just out of curiosity, she's 4 years old, right? I always ask her after I spray something on. And I've been wearing this all day as my scent of the day. You can see I put a pretty damn good dent in my bottle of Gucci Guilty Absolute. And this is a 90 ml. And had I known that it was going to be discontinued, I would love it this much, I would have got the big boy bottle. But I'm happy to have this. But I asked her, I said, what does daddy smell like today? And she said, a trampoline. And I thought, you know what? That's actually not an awful thing to say, because there is a little bit of this weird trampoline feel in here. Maybe it's the plasticky sort of feel of the rubber, but there's definitely something about that. So you can see it's an interesting, strange fragrance, okay? And what ended up happening, according to an industry insider, now take this with a grain of salt, okay? But having the channel, I have people reach out to me all the time, and someone reached out once and told me this story. They were an industry insider. Is how I'm going to leave it. I won't say who, but they basically said that what ended up happening is that an arms race happened in 2017. Because in 2017, Firmenich put out this wood leather note, and I believe one of the first times that it was used was in Gucci Guilty Absolute. And whenever these new materials come out, sometimes the houses limit who can use them, right? So from my understanding, what ended up happening is they have this special material that they create, and they say only our most senior or most tenured perfumers can work with this material, okay? So they reserve this for the folks like Alberto Morillas or like Pierre Negrin. And the reason I bring this up is this is called Amouage Opus XI, and I believe this is discontinued now, which is a shame if that's true, because that means both of these are discontinued, Gucci Guilty Absolute and Opus XI, which these two use a heavy dose of that wood leather note. They both do. The reason I bring this up is there was a bit of an arms race, is the way I would describe it, or the way it was described to me, I should say. And they both knew they had something special, and they both wanted to be the house that was the first one to use it in a big dose, right? To put out a fragrance that featured this wood leather note from Firmenich, okay? Well, Gucci won. They put this out in 2017. 2018, Amouage put out Opus XI. These two are so close. Now, this has an extra couple notes in here. There's marjoram in here. There's no marjoram in Gucci Guilty Absolute. And there is a note of oud in here. Now, like usual, Amouage isn't claiming to use real oud, so I think it's an oud accord, whatever that black oud that they use on the, you know, to create the oud accord, but a very well done synthetic oud. And you know, you could probably trick some people into thinking Gucci Guilty Absolute has a little bit of an oud note, even though it doesn't. You know, if you told someone oud is in here, they could easily believe you because of that animalic aspect, of the animalic woodiness in here. Many of the undertones, which we'll talk about as the review goes on, okay? But because of this arms race, the designer came out first. And these two are close enough that when I got this, okay, this is even more intense. If you know how intense Gucci Guilty Absolute is, this is even more intense, if that makes sense. Some people call this the Blue Beast Part 2, okay, because it's made by Pierre Negrin, Interlude Man, which is on my to review list, or at least to ramble about list, let's say, with Interlude Black Iris, and then the new Interlude 53. Maybe I'll do a video just encompassing all of them. But Pierre Negrin made the Blue Beast, and he also made this Blue Beast, which is Opus 11, which I don't think made it into the new bottles that Raymond Salman is, you know, picking and choosing winners in the Opus line, which really pisses me off because I think this deserves a spot. I think this is full bottle worthy. If you like this, you will like this. If you like this, you will like this, in my opinion. I almost treat this like a backup. But the reason I bring this up is for a man who created so many designer fragrances that I absolutely despise, for him to be the one to bring forward a designer fragrance that feels like it's on the cutting edge. And it feels like it's on the cutting edge because designer houses do not release stuff like this anymore. They just don't. You know, if you know the other Gucci line, like if you've smelled some of the other Gucci Guilty line, it is night and day difference to Gucci Guilty Absolute, in my mind. They share nothing of the DNA. This is such an outlier. And I think the reason is Gucci had a new creative director at the time who was trying to kind of shake things up and teach the fragrance world that we're not the same old Gucci, right? We're somebody new. And so they wanted to go in a direction like this, and boy, did they ever hit a home run. Now, the fact that it's discontinued just shows that hitting a home run is not necessarily measured in sales. I'm measuring hitting a home run in creativity. They would probably measure this as a bombastic failure, is my guess, okay? Because most average people probably smell this and go, what the fuck? You know, like, why in the world? Who? Well, first of all, who in the world would want to smell like that? And here we are as frag heads going, yes, give us more of that, please. So it's funny because it's very specific on the smell. So anytime you mix leather and vetiver, you get this kind of, I don't know, unique, smoky, earthy, leathery thing, right? And it's very deep and it's very complex. This is a very complex scent for a designer, in my opinion. So the color of the juice, apparently, according to what I've been able to uncover, is that the reason that Gucci decided to color it this color is that they wanted to give the impression of two things. They wanted the color of the juice to be reminiscent of cigars, okay? And they wanted it to be reminiscent of cognac. Those were the two things that they were going for, cigars and cognac. So they ended up on this color. And they absolutely, I think, knocked everything out of the park with Gucci Guilty Absolute. I think this is a huge hit for somebody like us, okay? Like I said, that's the trick for somebody like us. It's leathery, it's woody, it's smoky, it's earthy, it's got the vetiver, it's got all the patchouli, it's got the new captive molecules that smell different and interesting. It's got an animalic side to it, it's got a mentholated side to it, it's got a green side to it. It has so many different facets that it shows you, okay? But there is no tobacco note per se, okay? But they were going for cigars because obviously there is a smoky side to it. And what I think is happening is I think the vetiver that's being used, okay, is giving off this smoky earthiness, right? So, and I also think that because of the cypress, which there's a very specific cypress note used here called Nootka cypress. That's Nootka, Nootka cypress. And Nootka cypress is also known as Alaska cypress, and it's also known as yellow cypress. And it's a coniferous tree that's basically found along the west coast of North America. And from my understanding, it's supposed to give off this mentholated, woody, green signature that can sometimes smell like cedar, or this kind of sometimes undertones of like aromatic fruity notes. We'll get into it a little bit more later. But when you mix that with vetiver, okay, especially the earthy dark vetiver, which is going to be reminiscent of inky, earthy vetivers. And if you're already going down the path I'm trying to take you down, bravo to you. But if you have smelled other inky vetivers, a la Encre Noire, which came out in 2006, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So we're talking 11 years before Gucci Guilty Absolute. So this is almost a little bit of a designer hit, designer classic, like an instant classic, if you will. This is actually vetiver and cypress. Now the difference is that Nathalie Larson, she loves using different ingredients in her fragrances. Like, for example, there is a lot of cashmeran in here in the base. There's a lot of musk. She loves using musk. There's a lot of vetiveryl acetate in here and different types of vetiver. It focuses more on the vetiver, let's say. It doesn't have the wood leather note and the leathery animalic side of Gucci Guilty Absolute. But if you know Encre Noire, or you know another very interesting fragrance, and I've actually reviewed this one on the channel because I don't own a bottle, but someone sent me I think Nick very kindly sent me a pretty fat decant, which I was able to wear for a while in review, and it's good enough to have a bottle, I'll tell you that. It's by the house of Parfumum Roma, and it's called Fumidus, F-U-M-I-D-U-S, I believe. Fumidus comps to Gucci Guilty Absolute and Encre Noire and Opus 11, which I've done like a early impression video of this very early on, like when I was running my channel instead of up here in the loft in my office, when I was basically running it out of my bedroom. And you could look out the window from my master bedroom and see the backyard in some of my videos. So it's a very early video, so maybe I'll like properly review this now, but there is a early impression video on my channel about Opus 11. But that will get you kind of in the ballpark, right? So if you've smelled these fragrances, you're over, let's say, you know, you're in the ballpark. One thing I should mention with Fumidus, though, is there is an amped up whiskey note or liqueur note in Parfumum Roma's Fumidus. And whereas in Gucci Guilty Absolute, they're hinting at the cognac, let's say, because of the color of the juice, but there's no liqueur note that's actually listed in Gucci Guilty Absolute, but you're starting to see all of the pieces kind of the puzzle come together, right? So if you smelled some of the fragrances I mentioned, you're in the area, right? But if you really wanted to lock onto the target and what makes Gucci Guilty Absolute, you have to dive into that, I would say, wood leather note. That is really kind of the note that makes this what it is, that wood leather note. And like I said in the beginning, it smells like wood and it smells like leather. Firmenich is an oil supplier. They are not known for their unique name. So wood, leather, very simple, right? And that wood leather note, from my understanding, is it is supposed to be a tribute to the leather making past of Gucci, which actually makes perfect sense to me. You know, Gucci has some badass leather goods from the past I would love to have, although I spend my money on perfume and life in general. But how badass would it be to have a $10,000 Gucci wallet from back in the day or something like that? But so it's that wood leather note mixed with that Nootka cypress, which also feels like a very vital player to me. You know, it's big, it's bold. The Nootka cypress note in here is very punchy. It's punchy like vintage fragrances are punchy. Like if you're a fan of the way when you spray on an 80s fragrance, like Yesterday to Bed, I wore Wall Street by Victor to bed from 1984. Absolutely fantastic fragrance. I'm going to review that. That's going to get a Vintage Hall of Fame review from me. I love that stuff so much. I'm so glad I've got 2 bottles. And so Wall Street is an example of a vintage fragrance that just kind of punches you whenever you wear it, right? It's got that vintage sort of shock to the system. This has that. And I think part of it is because of that big, bold cypress note. It's vintage in feel, you know, having a cypress note like that. You think about the fantastic cypresses from back in the day. You know, Tom Ford did a tribute to Halston Z14 with Italian cypress, right? Which I've reviewed on the channel. Z14 is going to get a Hall of Fame review from me for sure. But there's definitely this throwback feel. It's slightly medicinal. I don't feel Nootka Cypress is as medicinal as... It doesn't have that sort of earth, that cleaning... Well, you know, there's definitely a clean chemical aspect to this, but I think the cypress note itself doesn't have that sort of clean air feel about it as other cypresses do. I think the Nootka cypress kind of goes in a little different direction because it has those undertones of this aromatic fruitiness, and some say that Nootka cypress can actually smell like blackcurrant and grapefruit. And what's interesting is if you take a flanker of Encre Noire, there's grapefruit in Encre Noire Sport. This is an amazing sport fragrance, by the way. For the summer, I mean, one of the best vetivers you can wear in the summer, and it's like $30 at discounters. It just goes to prove price and amazing perfumery do not always go in the same direction, right? But I bring that up because obviously Nathalie Lorson looked at this DNA, which is in the same ballpark as this DNA, and thought, man, a grapefruit note in the top with some other things to sort of sprighten it up would make perfect sense. And you know what? I think there's a little bit of that undertone in Gucci Guilty Absolute as well. So basically what Gucci Guilty Absolute is, whenever you spray, and you know, it moves a little bit, but it's not a huge it doesn't do these huge transitions where it starts here and goes over there, and you know, it's not linear, but it's not this huge transition fragrance either. But it basically feels like, when you wear it, a smoky, earthy vetiver with this animalic leather. That, like I've said earlier, many people like to describe that feeling of the leather and the vetiver coming together in different ways. I heard one person say, just imagine like opening up a Band-Aid, right? And imagine taking off the plastic wrapper. And every part of this is important to how it smells, because there's just weirdness to all of the whole thing. You know, you know how sometimes when you try to open up a Band-Aid, there isn't that little tab that makes it easy, and you just get pissed off because you're bleeding a little bit, so you just rip the damn thing, and then it doesn't rip straight, and you gotta like pull the Band-Aid out, and you know, and then you gotta get the damn little flaps off, right? So like my daughter mentioned the trampoline plastic feel. Just imagine struggling with the plastic of a Band-Aid to then get the Band-Aid off, put it on, right? It gets some blood on it, you take it off, you throw it in the fire, and you watch it burn. And that burning of plastic, which sometimes can change the color of the flame, right, depending on the weird chemicals inside of the plastic, that is a little bit of how Gucci Guilty Absolute smells on the skin. Burning Band-Aids, trampoline, however you want to describe it, cleaner. It's this weird animalic beast that just does not belong in the Gucci Guilty lineup. It just doesn't. I mean, there's no way that this fits in with the other Gucci Guilty line. The other Gucci Guilty line has this weird bubblegum thing that I despise, this designer bubblegum feel. This is ultra dry, ultra smoky, woody, leathery. I just love it to bits. I adore this stuff. I think it's probably backup bottle worthy, and if it wasn't for this, okay, I would probably have went for a backup. All right. I think it's one of the greatest designers of the 21st century, like I said earlier. And you know, it's interesting because when it comes to niche houses, usually you think, okay, it's going to be the niche houses that are going to be at the forefront of the evolution to evolve and do something different and special and try all these different things. But it's really crazy that when you really compare what this wood leather note has been used, and by the way, Alberto Morillas has used that wood leather note in other fragrances, which I have not reviewed on the channel. Like, for example, there's a Givenchy fragrance from last year in their high-end line, which I don't know anything about, called Temiere. I've never smelled that. Purple Suede from Goldfield and Banks has it from 2022. Oriental from Full Lord from 2020. Extrait Noir from Elixir, which I might have a sample of. I might have talked about that on a blind sniff or something. Elixir Extrait Noir has that wood leather note. Givenchy's Indompte from 2020, and that Philip Plein fragrance that what's his name, Alberto Morillas did, which is actually not terrible, called No Limits. They did a flanker the next year, or a couple years after, called No Limits super fresh, and that has this weird wood leather note. So it's starting to get used in more and more fragrances. Oh, a Penhaligon's fragrance called Rackets has it from 21, and Alter Ego 786 from Maison Noire, and Gowalla Four Walls from last year has it as well. So there are some fragrances that are now starting to use it, but you can see it's still relatively small, according to the Parfumo database anyways. And so I don't know who some of these other perfumers are, but I assume they must all be Firmenich. Nicolas Bonneville, which I'm not familiar with him. He did the Givenchy. And Alexandra Monet did the Maison Noire. So anyway, some maybe a string to pull on one day, because I do like this. And I'm sad that the two most famous, or the two fragrances, according to Parfumo, that introduced this wood leather note, which is very interesting, to the fragrance world, 2017 and 2018, are both discontinued technically. Even though I think Amouage hasn't officially, even though they haven't officially discontinued Opus 11, if you go look for it on the Amouage website, it's nowhere to be found. You cannot find it, and it did not get transferred into the new bottles. And I know they're not making these bottles anymore. So what does that mean? I mean, to me, it means it's probably discontinued. So, so yes, that is, it's very interesting though, when you think about the psychology of it, that the designer house beat the niche house, because usually it's the niche house leading the way, but the designer house, I think, really kind of took the bull by the horns, and they led the way with Gucci Guilty Absolute. And the other thing to mention, just Gucci as a house, you know, I've only reviewed one Gucci on my channel, and it was Gucci Rush, and I called it a discontinued gem. See, there's some fragrances that, to me, I can't put them in the Vintage Hall of Fame list or whatever it is, because I think they're good, but I don't think they're Hall of Fame level good, right? This was one such fragrance, Gucci Rush. I like it. I enjoy it. It's not a Hall of Fame fragrance for me, though, but I think it is good. I think it's a discontinued gem. Maybe I'll do a separate playlist for my discontinued gems. But there are other Gucci fragrances that are going to be reviewed that will be on that discontinued gem list, or even the Vintage Hall of Fame list. This is definitely going on the discontinued gem list. You know, when Tom Ford was at Gucci, you have to remember, in 2003, one of his last releases was this, which is Gucci Pour Homme from 2003. And I will review this on the channel as well. This very well may get a, this is going to get a full review very soon, probably. And, you know, who can forget Gucci Envy? This is probably going to get a discontinued gem release. And, of course, this is also discontinued. So Gucci Pour Homme 2, which is an amazing tea designer fragrance that I absolutely love. Violet leaf, and I think it's just perfect for the heat. I love wearing this in the heat. And so Gucci as a house, they just felt almost dead. Like the releases between some of those bottles I showed and this in 2017 were so bad. They're not even worth mentioning, okay? In my opinion, they just crashed directly into the side of the mountain and were left for dead. So, you know, it's interesting that they just had this revival in the Gucci Guilty line, mind you. You know, they had this, and then I think there was a couple other fragrances that the guy who ran Gucci tried to put out that were interesting and unique. So you're going to see more Gucci reviews on the channel is basically where I'm going with this. But I just think when you think about it from a historical standpoint of where fragrance releases came and what has happened and who was the director and what they were trying to do, this sits at this very interesting linchpin, you know, when Gucci was trying to be interesting and relevant at that. And they succeeded. And then they just went straight back to their, you know, their, let's say, corrupt capitalist roots, where they just want to grab as much money as they can and forget about creating amazing, distinct perfumery, right? And that sucks, because I wish they just would have said, hey, this is the type of brand we want to be now, and we are happy with what we made, and it's going to be part of our collection. And also, I think just the fact that it was in this collection hurt Gucci Guilty Absolute, because I think a lot of people who knew the Gucci Guilty line were expecting that designer bubblegum, and then you put this in this bottle, and they're probably like, what the hell? I mean, it's like waking someone up from the Matrix, you know? They're probably like, what the hell is going on? It's a total mindfuck. And I think Gucci may have been better off putting this in a different just bottle, but they did what they did. You know, I understand why it's discontinued. I hate that it's discontinued. But finishing up on the fragrance, Alberto Morillas did a couple other things with Gucci Guilty Absolute that are important. Number one is he used 3 types of patchouli oil, from my understanding. So there is this dank, sort of earthiness, right, that you find in Gucci Guilty Absolute. And the 3 types of patchouli oil, you get all different facets of patchouli while you're wearing it. So they really harken back to the old days. Like if you focus... So I'm not saying that this is Givenchy Gentleman from 1974 or anything like that on patchouli level, right? But, which this is definitely going to get a Vintage Hall of Fame review one of these days. It's on the list. But if you really allow yourself to pay attention and stay attuned to that patchouli note, you will pick out chocolatey facets. You'll pick out earthy, dank, medicinal, herbal facets of the patchouli. Very green. Works in tandem with the green cypress, the green Nucta cypress that I mentioned earlier. And it's almost like, you know what I was thinking as I was wearing this? It's almost like if you know someone who works in a hospital or who is going to have surgery, and let's say before surgery that day, the doctor tells them to use a special soap. There's like a special soap you're supposed to buy sometimes, right? That really cleans the body before surgery so you don't get an infection or something like that. It has this chemical, earthy smell. It's almost like you washed with the soap and then you sat by a birch fire, right? And birch wood has that smokiness to it. So there's no birch wood in here, but we're in a group chat and someone sent a picture of this birch fire and I was thinking about it. And you know what? It actually would fit the smell. So just imagine you wash with this strange chemical hospital soap that's supposed to kill every germ on the face of the earth. And then you sit by this birch fire and the birch smoky smell just seeps into your pores is really what it feels like. That's what it feels like while you're wearing it. This clean, but infused with smoke in the pores. This vintage throwback, you know, some of those old throwback fragrances from the good old days, they used to have a cleanliness to the leather. You know, some of them, there was a weird sort of contrast between fresh and animalic, or fresh and leather, or, you know, there were many examples of that, which I'll do more reviews as time goes on of some of those, what I would consider some of the best vintage fragrances from back in the day. And many of them sort of had that. Oscar de la Renta Pour Louis from 1980 is an example that pops to mind right now. There's a little bit of a, you know, strange freshness in there. It just seems like it shouldn't be. Everyone thinks of the 80s as this hardcore animalic. There's a weird freshness. And you get a little bit of that in here. It's strange. And maybe it's because that my mind has been infiltrated with that hospital. People keep saying it smells like a hospital. It smells like a hospital. And hospitals are constantly cleaned and disinfected. So there's that weird cleanliness, disinfectant, but with the leather, the animalic leather, you know, the wood, which probably could be passed off as oud, even though there's no oud in here, the green cypress, the different layers of patchouli. I mean, that's really what this scent is when you think about it. And that's the best way I can describe such a weird and outlandish and strange fragrance. But I absolutely adore this stuff. I love wearing it. I wore it today. My parents came over. I wore this for family day, basically, which is kind of funny. But yes, I do love it, and love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Finally, the last thing I want to say about this is the price. This has been discontinued for years, okay? I just did a quick search, at least here in the United States. You can buy a 50 ml bottle, which I know it's only a 50 ml, not a 90 ml like mine, but you can get a 50 ml for 66 bucks. That's still amazing value for money. It's on FragranceNet right now, $66. If you want the 3 ounce like mine, there's a FragranceNet has a tester for 80 bucks. So prices have not gone super crazy. I mean, I remember 3, 4, 5 years ago, you used to be able to find bottles of this for under 50 bucks. Now it's 70 or 80. So what? I mean, if you're a collector, and especially since you know this is discontinued, at some point you would expect stock to dry up and prices to skyrocket. But I think that just goes to show the, you know, I think the divisiveness of this fragrance, that it's so hyped up in the fragrance community, and yet it still is sitting there. It's 80 bucks for a 90 ml bottle. Which for the type of perfumery that's being put out right now, I mean, that may even be less than retail when it came out. It has to be less than retail, right? And so you would think prices would probably go up at some point in the future. But for me, I would grab it with both hands. Like if I didn't have a bottle of this and I knew I can get a 90 ml bottle for 80 bucks still right now in 2024, I'd grab it with both hands. Especially if I was a collector or someone who has taste like me. I love this stuff. I love wearing it. And even though it's bold and bombastic, there's something about it. Maybe it's that old school masculinity. There's something about it that I just feel like I can wear this anywhere. Like I'm comfortable in it. You know what I mean? I'd have no problem wearing this to work. Honestly, no problem. No problem wearing this for family day like I did today. You know, there's something about it that just makes it eminently wearable for me. Even though it's weird and strange. Not so weird and strange, I'm not scared to wear it. So, anyways, that's my take. Love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for putting up with the unboxing in the beginning. I should have cut all that stuff early on. But if you have any experience with this Kashti brand, I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. So appreciate everyone watching, commenting as always, and all the stuff you all do for the channel. It's a pleasure to do these videos for you guys. Cheers, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.